Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. My name is Breezy, and today we're going to be talking about Kansas. We're also going to be talking more specifically a little town in Kansas called Atchison, and we're going to be talking about a particular house, haunted house there. And that house is called Sallie House. Now, with that being said, this is what I know about Kansas. It has Kansas City, along with Missouri. I also found out that Kansas is one of those few states where it matches Missouri on where you can get in-state tuition if you live in Kansas. If you go apply to a school in Missouri, there you go. I also know that it used to be a center of the U.S. until the whole annexation of Hawaii and addition of Alaska. Lebanon, Kansas, if I remember correctly upon my research, and it is home to my favorite movie of all time, The Wizard of Oz. Now, as I said earlier, there's a city in Kansas called Atchison, and it happens to be the county seat, located along the Missouri. Now, let's get a little bit of history before we dive into the Sallie House, because I think to better understand the Sallie House, we have to understand the history of the town that it's located in. Now, Atchison was founded in 1854 and named in honor of Missouri Senator David Rice Atchison. So why why there's a lot of Missouri ties in Kansas that I've noticed. Anyway, now when Kansas was first opened for settlement, interested some of their friends in the scheme of forming a city in a new territory. Senator Atchison was interested in ensuring that the population of the new Kansas Territory would be a majority pro-slavery, as he had prominent promoter of both slavery and the idea of popular sovereignty over the issue of new lands. However, as you can imagine, not everyone agreed to this. Upon the location that he had selected on July 20th, 1854, Dr. H. Stringfellow, I with Ira Norris, and Leonidas Odom, James B. Martin, and Neil Owens left Platte City, Missouri, and decided to definitely upon his side. And they found a site that was a natural outlet for a remarkable rich agriculture region and sorry, my mic quit working on me. Okay. Sorry, my mic quit working on me. Anyway, they found a site that was a natural outlet in such a remarkable agricultural region just opened a settlement. Now, George M. Million and Samuel Dixon had staked claims near the river, and Dr. Stringfellow staked a tract unto north of Million's. And Million sold his claim for $1,000, which was an exorbitant price at the time. And 18 persons were present when the town company was formally organized by electing Peter T. Abel, president, James Bourne as treasurer, and Dr. Stringfellow secretary. Now, the site was divided into 100 shares, and 100 shares by the company, and of which the early members retained 5 shares, and the remainder was being reserved for the common benefit of all. By September 20th, 1854, Henry Kahn had surveyed 480 acres. He made a plat, and the next day fixed the land sale and lots. In the event of great importance, that it had become understood that Senator Atchison would make a speech among the political questions of the day, and hence the sale would be of political as well as a business significance. At his meeting on the 21st, two public institutions of vital interest to a new company was planned for a hotel company. Each share stock in this town was assessed about $25, and the proceeds will be used to build a national hotel, which was completed in the spring of 1855, and $400 was donated to Dr. Stringfellow and Robert S. Kelly to erect. Now, Let's talk about the Squatter Sovereign. And this was a paper with strong pro-slavery sentiments, and it was first issued February 3rd, 1855, and it had formerly been published at Liberty, Missouri, under the name of the Democratic Platform. And in the spring of 1857, it was purchased by Samuel C. Pomeroy, Robert Bratton, and F.G. Adams, who changed its policy and published a Free State paper until the fall of the same year, when Pomeroy became a sole owner. Now, the post office in Atchison was established April 10th, 1855, and you needed a post office in time to be considered a town. Let's go ahead and put that out there. So it's a government office, so it needed that, right? So, with Kelly as postmaster, it opened in a small building and a block later occupied by the Otis House. In July 1883, and a free delivery system was inaugurated. And for years, there has been considerable trade up and down along the Missouri, which had naturally centered at Leavenworth, but in June 1855, several overland freighters such as Livingston, Kincaid and Company, Hooper and Williams were induced to select Atchison as their outfitting point and form the basis that established Atchison as a commercial center. Now, early merchants formed to establish business in the new towns and the George Chalice, brothers and Stephen Johnson and Samuel Dixon. And on August 30th, 1855, Atchison was incorporated, and Dr. Stringfellow had North Atchison surveyed and platted in the fall of 1857. And this started a fever of additions. In February 1858, West Atchison was laid out by John Roberts, and May Samuel Dixon had his property surveyed in South Atchison, and still another addition was made by John Chalice. Until 1858, the city was pro-slavery bastion out. By that year, the anti-slavery forces took control of the city. On February 12th, the legislature issued a charter to the city of Atchison and was approved by the people on March 2nd at a special election. The first city officers were elected at a second special election on March 13, 1858, and the Republican Samuel C. Pomeroy was elected, and the German element was a largely Catholic opposed at the time to closing lawmakers in the new city. But a satisfactory compromise was reached and allowed to sell a beer on Sundays after church service. Now, let's talk about the early development of Atchison, shall we? Well, we know the first schools in the town were private, including parochial school, which was operated by the Germans, and once the first English schools opened in 1857 by Lizzie Bay, the school district was established in October 1858, and a month later, an Atchison Free High School was opened at the corner of Atchison and Commercial Streets. Now, let's talk about Atchison during the Civil War. And that is, sorry guys, got a tickle in my throat. At the outbreak of the American Civil War, there were 3 militia companies organized in Atchison whose members enlisted in the Kansas regiments. They were known as Companies A, C, and at all hazards. Early in September 1861, a home guard was organized in the town that protected it in case of an invasion from Missouri. And on the 15th of the month, another company was raised, which subsequently mustered into a state regiment. In 1863, the city of Atchison raised 4,000 to assist the soldiers from the county, and after the Lawrence Massacre was described to assist the stricken people of the city. Now, citizens of the town also joined the vigilance committees that so materially aided civil authorities in suppressing raiding and the lawless bounds and thieves. Now, during the war, Atchison was also the headquarters of numerous bands of jayhawkers, including the notorious Charles Metz, who was known as Cleveland Metz and a former prisoner at the Missouri State Pen. He robbed any suspect. So I done lost my place, guys. I am so sorry. Okay, let's try that again. And it selected Atchison as the headquarters of the Rays in Missouri and was accepted with open arms by the people of the town. Now, during this period, he robbed and suspected Southern sympathizers and threatened several leading citizens with murder and robbery if they remained in the town. He even had the audacity to run off the president as Atchison P.T. Abel, who was forced into exile until the Civil War was concluded. He defied all authorities, and he who attempted to rein him in excesses, but was finally shot at some point in 1862, and he is buried at St. Joseph, Missouri. Now, what follows the Civil War? Industrialization. Y'all knew it was coming, so we have to talk about it, right? And I understand this is history not some of y'all actually wanting to hear about right now. That's okay. I will put a little pinpoint where you can click on the Sallie House if that is something you would like to stay and listen to if I haven't written you off by now. So, that is you. I love history and I will continue to teach history. And we have to understand the history of what places are first. But in the late 1850s, plans were underway to connect California to the rest of the country by rail. And the logical location for a western terminus was in or around San Francisco, California. But an eastern terminus has yet to be chosen. Atchison was fierce in competition to be selected for the terminus. In order to bolster its position, a rail line was constructed from St. Joseph to Atchison between 1857 and 1859, and it funded a large part of $150,000 raised by citizens of Atchison and connected to the Hannibal and St. Joseph R in the eastern end. Now, the Atchison and Topeka Railroad was founded in 1859 with Atchison as its eastern terminus and the intentions of connecting Kansas to Southwest by railway. And although construction was delayed by the Civil War, a land grant to one given to Union Pacific construct. Its first transcontinental was made by federal government into Kansas in 1963, which was transferred to a newly reformed Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, the 18SF. Finally, in 1868, construction was begun on the line in Topeka, but was aimed west and south toward the Colorado border. Now, the connection between Atchison and Topeka was a distance of less than 50 miles and would not be completed until May 1872. Now, my laptop just went crazy on me, y'all. Now, the city tried to become a major railroad center, but it was surpassed by Kansas City and Omaha due to the former greater industrial capability and connections to Texas and the latter connection to Chicago, rather than St. Louis. Furthermore, the Atchison boosters were unable to unite on a single project, instead scattering their efforts to the southwest, west, and northwest, and none of which would prove to be successful. A proposed Atchison and Peak line was eventually taken over by Union Pacific, while a speculative Atchison-Nebraska connector was eventually finished, taken over by investors. Bickering delayed the building of the bridges, stockyards, and elevator warehouses and railroad yards, revealing a disharmony that plagued Atchison's entrepreneurs. Now, the competition to the connector of St. Joseph, which later became the Missouri Pacific, and finally a connection to the growing AT system, and everything. Now, after his arrival in 1872, John Seton became one of the leading citizens in Atchison, and besides establishing the foundry, which would become the center of the town's industry, he owned a local theater, served as a school board, and everything. In 1914, Harry Mulick invented a revolutionary diesel locomotive piston ring. In 1924, the Johnson and Foundry built an electric arc melting furnaces for efficient smelting. Mm. Now, with that being said, let's jump right into why you want to, and that's going to be at 1513. Um, and we're going to be talking about the Sallie House, which is a haunted house and tourist attraction that is in Atchison County. And this house dates back to the mid 1880s, 1800s, and it is said to be haunted by the ghost of the young girl whose name is Sallie. Now, though Sallie is also thought to be a facade for something more demonic, the house has been vacant since the 90s. And the Sallie Mae House was, the Sallie House was built in the mid 1800s, commissioned by the Finley family, home to Charles Finley, and some believe that Dr. Finney practiced medicines from the house, used the bottom floor for surgery and examination, and a bedroom as an office. Now, the Finney family lived upstairs until moving out due to lack of space. However, the layout of the floor plans of the house does not suggest this theory. Now, Dr. Finney operated a medicine office down the road at the time he lived in the house. And the house is actually on Zillow for like 1 million as of February 2016. But it will drop to 499,000 um and taken off the market in November 2017. Oh, I bought that house. That's real estate gold right there. I don't care what anyone says. Uh, Now, the Sallie House is reported to be haunted by the ghost of a young girl who died there, and according to legend, a child named Sallie was brought to Dr. Finney's house by her mother, who was having severe abdomen pain, normal pain. He gave her anesthesia and began surgery, and he also believes Sallie's appendix was about to rupture. However, he made the first decision before the anesthesia kicked in. As he continued surgery, Sallie continued screaming and from pain and bled out, which ended up killing her. However, there is no physical evidence of the Sallie House, of Sallie living or dying on the property, and it has been said that the mayor made the story up for publicity stunt to attract more visitors to the city. Now, former multiple tenants have alleged that there are paranormal activity here, and it has been especially reported by male residents and visitors. Some have even claimed to be scratched until they bled, which has led to Sallie being dubbed the man-hating ghost. Um, and this could be because the last thing that Sallie saw before her death was a male doctor, whom she believed was torturing her. In the 1990s, the house was featured on the Paranormal investigation TV show The Sighting. However, former residents appeared on the show A Haunting in 2006 and A Paranormal Witness in 2013. Now, on January 17, 2015, there was an episode up here on Ghost Adventures, and it has been featured twice on BuzzFeed Unsolved. Supernatural, first in season 1, episode 3 of 2016, and again in the final episode of season 7, episode 6 in 2021. Alright, that is it for this episode. Join me next time as we talk about Franklin Castle, and we are gearing up to the end of these 12 episodes eventually. And next one's going to be a kind of a history folklore vibe. So that's not something you're into? Well, you'll just have to wait till episode 164, where we talk about some travel locations with some fun areas. Alright, I'll see y'all next time.